Judy's hand hesitated on the documents. For a brief moment, her mind replayed the scene. Jack's calm expression, his steady signature, the quiet finality in his voice when he said, "Thank you for setting me free." Her chest tightened, though she quickly masked it. "File them," she ordered coldly. But long after the papers were taken away, her fingers tapped restlessly against the desk. Why hadn't he begged? Why hadn't he fought? This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Peter appeared at her door, his boyish face lighting up when he saw her. "President Keller, I brought your coffee. You've been working too hard. You should rest." He placed the cup carefully on her desk, his movements gentle, almost timid. His brown eyes looked at her with admiration, gratitude, dependence. He was the picture of vulnerability, exactly the kind of man who stirred her instinct to protect, to nurture. Normally, his presence soothed her. But today she felt nothing. No, worse than nothing. She felt restless, irritated, because every time she looked at Peter, she remembered the way Jack had walked out without looking back. In Los Angeles, Jack wasted no time. The city was alive with energy, opportunities hiding behind every corner. From his hotel room, he drew up plans and began contacting old business acquaintances, names the novel had taught him would one day rise to prominence. He started small, networking, investing what little money he had into a promising logistics startup. But even that first meeting revealed the edge his new mind gave him. Numbers that would confuse most men unfolded before him like a children's puzzle. He predicted market shifts that left seasoned investors wide-eyed. His confidence, his decisiveness, it drew people in. Within a week, Jack was no longer just a divorced man starting over. He was the spark of something greater. Each night, as he lay in bed, he felt it. The story's invisible pull, the script trying to nudge him back onto its rails. Images of Judy, of Peter, of humiliation and despair. But Jack laughed him off. "I'm not your puppet," he whispered to the ceiling. "This time I write the story." And as the lights of Los Angeles glimmered outside his window, Jack Keller, the man abandoned in the book, began the first steps toward becoming something far greater than the story had ever intended. The morning sun broke across the Los Angeles skyline, painting the glass towers in shades of gold. Jack stood at the window of his modest hotel room, a steaming cup of black coffee in his hand, and let the warmth seep into his chest. The city stretched endlessly before him, buzzing with opportunity. For most people, Los Angeles was a place of dreams, where talent and ambition either soared or burned to ashes. For Jack, it was a chessboard, and he already knew the endgame. He set the coffee down and spread a stack of papers across the desk. Financial reports, market analyses, projections. At first glance, it looked overwhelming. But to Jack's mind, sharpened beyond human limits, it was nothing more than a series of patterns waiting to be assembled. Every line of data whispered story. Every percentage screamed an opportunity. Logistics, renewable energy, medical tech, he muttered, jotting notes in a neat, rapid hand. Each one's on the verge of exploding. If I move fast enough, I can secure a foothold before the world realizes their true value. The confidence in his voice surprised even him. Only a week ago, in his original world, he had been an ordinary man, struggling, average, someone who read stories to escape. Now, sitting in a world where fate had tried to cast him as a loser, he felt alive in a way he never had before. Jack Keller was no longer surviving. He was building. His first meeting was with a small logistics company, barely hanging on in a saturated market. Their CEO, a balding man named Richard, eyed Jack warily across the table. "You're proposing a complete overhaul of our operations," Richard said, tapping his pen nervously. "But we don't have the capital to—" "You don't need more capital," Jack interrupted smoothly. His voice was steady, persuasive. "You need efficiency. Your competitors waste millions on outdated routes and poor coordination. I can streamline your supply chain by 20% in 6 months." Richard frowned. "That's impossible." Jack smiled faintly. "Not impossible, just something you haven't seen yet." He slid a document across the table. It contained a detailed plan, routes, partnerships, digital integration. He had prepared it overnight, his super-enhanced mind piecing together information faster than any analyst could dream. Richard scanned the papers, his skepticism slowly giving way to astonishment. This could work, he whispered. It will work, Jack corrected. But I want equity. 10%. I'll bring in investors and connections you could never reach alone. You'll get stability, growth, and a future. I'll get a stake in the empire I'm building. Richard looked up, meeting Jack's calm, unyielding eyes. And in that moment, he saw not a desperate man chasing scraps, but a visionary. Someone who knew. Deal, Richard said, extending his hand. Jack shook it firmly, a smile tugging at his lips. The first piece was in place. From there, things moved quickly. Word spread in whispers about the mysterious investor with uncanny foresight, the man who could predict market shifts before they happened. Some called him lucky. Others said he had insider information. None of them were right. Jack was simply playing with knowledge the world hadn't caught up to yet. He invested in a fledgling software company developing cloud solutions, something Judy's company was supposed to acquire 2 years later in the book. He secured a medical technology startup poised to revolutionize diagnostics. He funded renewable energy research just as government subsidies began to flow in. Each move was calculated. Each investment was a step toward dominance. And every night, when Jack closed his eyes, he could feel the story tugging at him, reminding him of what was supposed to happen. Judy smiling at Peter, Jack kneeling in the rain, the spiral of humiliation. But every morning, when he woke, he laughed in defiance. Not this time. Weeks passed, and Jack's name began circulating in higher circles. His meetings grew larger, his partners more influential. He no longer looked like a man starting over. He looked like a rising star, a storm on the horizon. But beneath his confidence, Jack carried a private thought. He wasn't building this empire just to prove Judy wrong. It wasn't about revenge or bitterness or even her at all. It was about freedom. He had been thrown into this world as a pawn, but he would leave it as a king. And one day, when this chapter closed, he would carry his empire back to his own life. Back in New York, Judy Keller sat in her office, staring at a glowing report on her screen. Her company was thriving, but her focus wavered. The headline she had skimmed over breakfast kept replaying in her mind. Mysterious entrepreneur secures multi-million-dollar deal in L.A. Visionary investor predicted market shift months in advance. Rising business star Jack Keller poised to reshape multiple industries. Her hands tightened around her coffee mug. It couldn't be. It had to be coincidence. And yet, deep down, she knew. It was him, the man she had dismissed, the husband she had cast aside, the fool who should have been groveling at her feet. He wasn't groveling. He was soaring. Judy set her mug down too hard, the ceramic clinking against the desk. Peter rushed in, concern on his face. President Keller? Are you all right? She forced a smile. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine, because for the first time since she had divorced him, Judy felt something she never thought she would feel again. Fear. Jack, meanwhile, leaned back in his chair after another successful negotiation, the city lights of Los Angeles glowing beyond his window. His phone buzzed with new offers, new opportunities. But he silenced it, staring out at the horizon with a faint smile. The game had only just begun, and this time, Jack Keller was writing the rules. The boardroom was silent, except for the clicking of Judy Keller's heels as she paced. Her directors sat stiffly, watching as she flipped through the quarterly reports with sharp, practiced eyes. Revenue is stable, she said finally, placing the file down. But stable isn't enough. Stability is stagnation. We need growth. Her words carried the same commanding authority that had built Keller Group into a powerhouse. The directors nodded quickly, murmuring agreements. On the surface, Judy was every bit the iron-willed CEO who had forced her way to the top. But beneath that polished exterior, her thoughts were scattered. It had been weeks since Jack signed the divorce papers. She had expected him to show up at her office again, begging, apologizing, offering anything to win her back. That was how it was supposed to happen. That was how it always happened, with men who couldn't live without her. But Jack hadn't appeared. He hadn't called. He hadn't sent flowers, texts, or letters. He had vanished. And then came the headlines. Jack Keller, the rising visionary of Los Angeles. Jack Keller startup secures $10 million investment. Former Keller Group co-founder makes stunning comeback. Judy had read every article, trying to convince herself it was coincidence, that it was some other Jack Keller. But the photographs left no doubt.